The words have gotten all distorted. What they meant to say was not reported. Before the torches come to town, we gonna burn this fort down.
Welcome back to the show, FORTitude. Today is our Father's Day spectacular special.
And first filming, did you notice I did the cue right there for the video?
We are currently, working on our video capabilities for the show. So look forward to seeing that and how that looks with our sweet looking faces.
Who knew that Betamax was still alive and could be filmed in this format?
You would not imagine the amount of makeup that my face required to get on the show.
Father's Day. So yes. What are your big plans, JW?
Steve Wilson, love you. Thanks for being a good dad.
Jody Payne, thank you. The deceased George, appreciate you putting me here on this earth.
And last but not least, the old Bob Dyer. We lost him a year and a half ago.
Oh, yes.
Loved old Bob Dyer. So
yeah,
thank you, dads out there. A couple of big other news stories before our special guest today. I think we had a new mayor sworn in just recently. Is that correct?
Did, yes, on Tuesday evening, along with a host of new city council members. And what a young and diverse group we have now. So I think that the new mayor, Mayor Maddie, said it quite articulately. It's go time, Fort Worth.
I heard that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good luck, Maddie. Hope you do a heck of a job. We're rooting for you. So go do your thing.
Yep.
Also, Brinton, on the slate, Juneteenth is now as of this week a federal holiday, a national federal holiday signed this past Thursday. What makes this more relevant than just the incredible news that it is? Fort Worth's own Opal Lee, 94-year-old Opal Lee, was at the White House for the signing of this. Opal Lee is an activist, a very vocal activist. Back in 2016, 5 years ago, Brinton, she walked from Fort Worth, Texas to D.C., which is roughly 1,400 miles, to bring awareness in this regard.
Surely not on a June or July day like today.
I don't know the date, but regardless, even if it was 71 degrees, that's
sure.
Still incredible.
Yeah, it is.
As you know, Brenton, Juneteenth celebrates the freedom of the slaves nearly 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. What's cool about this bill, it was a necessary thing, and there's also obviously lots of work to do, but this bill was sponsored by both Republicans and Democrats collectively. There was no fighting over this one. It was just like, it's time, and it got done. So,
well, and if you want to know how that relates to us, which all things do come back to us, it is because I think that there was a movie that was made by one of our interviewees who ran against against Maddie this last time. Deborah Peoples' daughter was the one who made a movie about, I think it's called Miss Juneteenth, and that was the movie.
Right.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So good job, Opal Lee. We hope to have you on the show soon. I've reached out, so I hope to hear back if you're not too busy marching, which is an incredible feat at a woman her age, but keep it up.
Sure.
Lastly, on the agenda, TCU lost its longtime baseball coach, Jim Slossenagel. We're going to miss saying that name, but he went off to Texas A&M to coach down there. But they hired from within.
Ooh, what do they do? Whoop.
Whoop.
Yep.
Something like that. Sorry, Patrick, for the bad whoop.
Or McGee.
But TCU did a really good thing. They hired from within after announcing a national search and hired assistant Kirk Sarlos. We also reached out to Kirk Sarlos to come on the show as well, but he is well loved. He's a player's coach. Everyone in the town thinks the guy's a fantastic.
You play at TCU?
He did not play at TCU, but he's been around a while. He's been Slossenagel's assistant for some time.
That's good.
Don't know him that well, but I know he's a good guy because I know some of his friends, and they think he's the bee's knees. So, and now, Brinton,
the bee's knees. What an expression!
That's a Father's Day expression.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Now let's get to our special guest. You're going to love this guy. His name is Scott Berkman. So get ready. Hold on tight. This guy's a trip. He's a good guy, but he's got a heck of a storyteller too. So here we go.
The words have gotten all distorted. What they meant to say was not reported.
Okay, Brinton. Today we have a very special guest on FORTitude. This guy, you might say, is a friend to Fort Worth. I say that because about everybody in Fort Worth who dines or goes out knows this guy. He's a very familiar face. He's a lovely guy, a wonderful guy. He is, his name is Scott Berkman. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you, JW.
Hello, Scott. Welcome.
Thank you.
You might know Scott from such places as Ellerbees or Waters, or previously Bistro Louise in the prior life.
Yep.
But there was somewhere before too.
I opened Silver Fox when I first got here.
I think that's where I've met you before.
I was there the first 3.5 years, and I worked at Bistro Louise at the same time.
Okay.
So I gave them a couple of nights, and then I worked a few days at Bistro.
Oh yeah.
Every week.
Prior to being in Fort Worth, though, you were a restaurateur in the California,
In LA.
LA.
Yep. 4 restaurants in LA.
Can you tell us about
14
those?
years. I had gone out to LA, the whole Dallas crew that I used to hang out with. We just all moved to LA, just like single file in the mid 80s, and did several TV shows and commercials and made a lot of money really quickly. A lot of partying really quickly.
Was the partying better here, and it was
Not
dying
so
down
much.
here?
Yeah,
Was
it's dying down
the Star
here.
Club got raided, so LA we go?
Exactly.
Yeah, you came to Fort Worth. Something must have drawn you to
Well,
this
that
town.
was just coming back to family. I had done enough in LA. I had my restaurants for 14 years. And that was just babysitting. I mean, owning 4 restaurants it comes down to babysitting. 188 employees, every week with the phone calls. Oh, I can't come in tonight. I can't do that. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore.
So what was the most the best excuse for that wait staff not showing up to work, or whomever it was? The best
I
one.
had Italian restaurants, so I had delivery drivers and I had indoor dining.
Mhm.
And the delivery drivers were all from Brazil, so they partied hard. And when you have 300 deliveries and a night at each restaurant, and then I'm down in Long Beach catering Titanic, or I'm doing the 150th episode of Friends, or Hollywood Squares was on back then with Whoopi Goldberg, and I would cater that. I would be at different places.
Oh yeah.
So if I wasn't in the restaurant would get the call. They would call me or page me. Back then we had pagers, and it was just a bunch of kids, but they're from Brazil and they party and they go look for girls every night.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm just like, boys, y'all got to, you want to make $200 or $300? Do you want to make a delivery to Robert De Niro, who lived in Venice or may still live there? I don't know. Or Dudley Moore, or, I mean, all the stars lived
Sure.
in Marina Del Rey and Venice, where I had one restaurant. And that's the one restaurant that everybody always called into. It was like, I just can't make it tonight. I'm like, guys, you can't have it. This is way back in the day when Morton Downey Jr. was on, and Brad Garrett was just getting big, and he had a delivery like every night. And I'm like, these guys are, $20 tippers. Well, to a little kid from Brazil, that's a lot of money. So
Yeah.
they would sometimes make enough money, and they're like, I don't have to work for the rest of the weekend. I made $300. They paid the rent, and now they're just going to go play. So it was a pain in the ass, and it became just babysitting.
Yeah.
So you come home to Fort Worth for family reasons.
Well, it came out, in 1999, I was up on the roof of the restaurant with an air conditioning guy. And we had swamp coolers actually in Marina Del Rey in Venice.
They have those in Lubbock too.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a shame. But I was going back down and kind of climbing on the burglar bars of the back door. I had 2 back entrances, and the door just slipped. I fell. I remember grabbing for the gutter because I had just had a new blacktop asphalt put in my back driveway. And I would just look down, and I saw that I was going to hit hard. And me being as vain as I am, I looked down. I know. I looked down to see how far I had to go. And of course, that's when I impacted, but I was trying to roll because I did Baywatch years and years ago, and they taught you how to roll.
Oh, for real?
When you fall on the sand, it's hard.
Yeah.
And they taught me, and I rolled, but I kept looking down to see how far I went. And I had just done, I mentioned earlier, the Friends 150th episode catering, and I had 150th show hat from friends, and there was only like 100 of them made, or 200, and that was my prized possession then. So that went into my forehead and my hairline, and of course it was stuck in there, and there was shit. There was like brain matter and gray matter and all kinds of stuff. So my employees kind of saw me fall and rushed me to the hospital, and I fed everybody at the hospital. So they're like, my place was called Mama's back then, Mama's Original Pizza and Pasta. And they were like, Mama's here, Mama's here. And then I went rushing in. I was like, save the hat, just save the hat. And they're like, dude, there's brain matter on there. We can't do that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was awful. And that is when I decided I'm going to just, go home. I was down for about a month. And my mom flew out and took care of me. That's what moms do. And I just decided, I'd had enough. I was going to buy a 5th restaurant, and I thought I'm spread too thin.
Yeah.
I'm Jewish. I kind of go to each restaurant every night and pick up the daily receipts and the deposits and all that. And I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. And I was just tired. After 14 years, I was tired.
Sure.
And that month probably gave you were down, and it probably gave you that time to just be like,
I still
hey.
got the phone calls, and I still woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, oh, I forgot to order sweet and low, or I forgot to, there's lemons on the back 3rd shelf down in the walk-in that we need to rotate out. My mind was always going, and I was just like, just take a breath. These people, it would have just driven me.
Sure.
To even more drugs than I did and everything else. So
in LA? No.
Not in LA.
So you went to W.T. White High School, Dallas.
I did.
Family is living in Dallas. As a kid, you're from Dallas?
Born and raised in Dallas. And then my mom moved to Las Vegas in the early 80s and kind of left me and my brother on our own. He had just started with the Zales Corporation and then later moved to Neiman Marcus and ran Precious Gems at Neiman Marcus for 17 years. Then transferred him here to Fort Worth. So once my brother started having children in the 80s, mom kind of got her shit together and kind of came home to nanny my brother's kids, my niece and my nephew. And I thought, I'm just going to move to Miami.
Oh, just another calm spot. You've had enough of LA. Yeah. Why not just relax a little?
Exactly. And I thought, you know what, Scott, just go right in the middle, go home. So I came to Fort Worth and I thought, I'm 3.5 hours anywhere I want to fly. I can go play in New York or go to spend a weekend in Miami or go back to LA or do whatever I want. I'm right in the middle of the country. And I took off about a year and kind of semi-retired. And I thought after about a year and 3 or 4 months, I was like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So I went to Silver Fox. A friend of mine said that there was a restaurant opening. And I thought, well, this is okay. I want to keep my toe in the water. I just don't want to have to swim. I want to be able to go home and go to sleep without waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh, I forgot this lady's lemon squeeze on a hot tea or whatever used to wake me up. And I didn't have the orders and I didn't have the employees calling in. I didn't have 188 people depending on me. I had me. I slept at night. I woke up. I went to work. I only worked about 20 hours a week. I still work about 20 hours a week. And then I'll take off. If I get really tired, I'll take off for a month. Next year, I'm going to be out of the country for probably 3 months just to play and to go travel and do what I want to do.
We'll get to that traveling here in just a bit. From Silver Fox, you go to Bistro Louise.
Bistro, worked there at the same time, did lunches at Bistro and maybe a couple of dinners if I had requests or call parties, as we call them in the business. Then each restaurant knew that I was becoming very popular because I'm the guy that would tell you dirty jokes at the table, and I was the guy that knew your kids. I mean, you were pregnant at one time and I've grown with your children. And so I was very popular. I still am.
Yes, you are.
Just me. But if I had a call party at one restaurant, I would call, or the manager would call the other manager and was like, we really need him tonight. We've got the congressman coming in, or we've got whoever used to go into Bistro Louise. We had everybody. So they would say, oh, we really want Scott. We've got a guest in from out of town and we want them to be entertained and not just, hello, sir, sit down, I'm your server, blah, blah, blah. They want fun. They want to have fun.
Yeah.
They want a little dirty joke here and there. And they don't want just somebody with a towel over their arm just saying, yes, how may I serve you? And, it's my pleasure and all that. I'm like, yeah, you really don't want that. It's, it's not my favorite thing. It's like this. And I know what my people eat. And I'm like, you wouldn't like the sauce. You wouldn't want this. You would want, the side, the starch to be different, or the protein is too rich for you, or whatever. I mean, I know you guys. I mean, I've fed you guys for years. So that's kind of,
it's one of the things that endears you to a lot of people in this town is that you put a little more attention to what your craft, and it's incredible because you've made a long list of friends in this town, some pretty highfalutin people, if I might add. Yeah. Mayor Price, one of them, a friend of the show. Yep. Who else you become friends with?
Oh, the Blackmans are my other family. All their children, all their house parties way back when. Debbie Blackman, when she and Greg were still married. Now it's Tiffany. Love you, Tiffany. But there was a time when this woman walked into Bistro Louise and she was wearing a mink cape and a denim skirt and Cartier stilettos. Well, who knew Cartier made stilettos? And I'm just like, who is this bitch? She is kind of fabulous. And she had a raspy voice. And then she's like, there's something about you I like. And I was like, there's everything about you that I like.
A match made in heaven.
And she was on a regatta, and, everybody, the ship sank that she was on, and she, people were jumping off of the raft and getting eaten by sharks, and she made it. And I thought she was the most fascinating person, and started doing their parties. And in turn, people that went to her parties would come see me at the restaurant, and I would start doing their parties, and their families would be starting. And so it's been kind of fun.
That's how podcasts work, we're told.
Yeah, for sure.
The domino effect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When did Ellerbees begin for you?
Ellerbees, my 11th anniversary was the 1st of June. So I've been there 11 years.
Still enjoying it? Still enjoying the atmosphere?
I love what I do.
What do you have to, I was going to wait on this, but now, I mean, it's because you're talking about so many of the positives of this industry. What do you say to all the kids sitting on the couch right now who are not coming back to the service industry and working? I mean, what's your take on that whole thing? That's going
to turn around and bite them in the butt, because we reopened. We closed March 13th like everybody else. And then May 7th, right before Mother's Day last year, we started back up with curbside and things like that. Well, I didn't do curbside, and I'm older. I'm 2 to 3 times older than the kids that work at Ellerbees. And I said, whoever's got kids, whoever's got a family, whoever's got a wife, please give these shifts to them. You can make tips on curbside and this, that, and the other. So when they opened the restaurant back up, it was just Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, just for a few hours, or a couple of hours actually. And half the tables were out of the restaurant, and I would still get call parties. And I was like, well, I just moved my mother in to my condo, and about 10 years ago, and she's a little bit older. I'm getting a little bit older. Even though I've lasted and lived through 9 pandemics, if Corona tried to come in my body, it would just be like, oh, hell, we don't have a chance. He's lived through everything. So I finally went back and did call parties little by little. And then I would do curbside at Waters downtown for John Bonnell on Sundays.
Oh, yeah.
And that was popular. And my customers, John Bonnell's restaurant, was really long lines. It was like, an hour in the line, and it was like 3 miles down the road, and people were waiting for curbside. And my customer would call and say, hey, can't you get us up in in the line. And I was like, just come to Waters. We got the same food. They'd get out of line, drive to Waters, be there for 6 minutes, get the exact same food, and tip me fat. I mean, I'm not stupid. I'm still Jewish. I mean, that's it's all about the tips. And I could share that with the people that I was working curbside with too.
Sure, you could.
Well, I could. No, I really could. And it was fun for me because then I'd get people, coming all the way from, South Fort Worth up to downtown, and they'd be home in less time than they'd still be sitting in line over at Bonnell's.
So
and they were like, well, let's just come to you from now on every Sunday. And I was like, cool.
In the highlight before the restful period, what was the craziest night at Ellerbees?
Oh God. Craziest night at
You probably get those call parties where you're like, I know this is going to be kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, we had a buyout for some of my favorite customers. They were just in a few weeks ago. And it was just 15 of them in the back room.
Are we naming names at this point?
No.
This may
we
not,
don't have
this
to.
may not make it to the national.
We do have
airwaves.
one of those buttons that can bleep if you need it.
No, I'm not going to name names like that, but they drank very fine wine, and the party was fantastic, and it was just me and them. And like I said, I could tell dirty jokes, and people that were guests of theirs just looked at me like, where did this guy come from? They were just listening to the stories and the dirty jokes and the performance of whatever I do when I go to work. And they're like, this guy's great. So that in turn gives me more customers and more call parties to come back. And they're going to do another party with me. They told me 3 weeks ago, in a couple of months for his big birthday. Like I think he turned 60.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me too.
We're narrowing it down now.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to narrow it down further, and because this may not have been that, but best tip of your life and like party of how many?
The best tip of my life was $2,744.
What happened?
It was a law firm, and their bill only came out to $7,570 something dollars, and they had a $10,000 budget and a $10,000 check already pre-made to Silver Fox. This was Silver Fox's days, and yeah, 2,744.
That's great.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to Scott Berkman as we know him here in front of us.
Yeah.
There's more than just meets the eye, though. We've been hearing about this person. I think her name is Ginger.
Her name is Ginger.
Have you heard of Ginger? Do you know much about this person?
She is my evil twin. She comes out on vacations, and I am the grande dame of many trips, and I do go all over the world. I'm gonna start going back to work in October, and I will be in Key West and Jamaica and Cayman Islands and Cozumel in October and early November.
What does Ginger do for her profession?
Ginger's just kind of fantastic. I mean, it's all custom costumes and very Cher and J-Lo, and she's getting a little older now, so she doesn't do exactly what she used to be able to do. So now I'm kind of the grande dame and the ambassador for the group that I go with, which is about 250 to 300 people.
Wow.
In each trip. So we take over either half of the cruise line, or we will go to a resort and take over the whole resort. And it's my job to go make people come to see the show, because it's private for us and free for us and our group. But people see the entertainers and they're like, well, we want to come to the next show. And we're like, okay, well, it's $20 a head, and it's this, that, and the other, and bring cash to tip. I mean, all this shit isn't free. It doesn't just happen. So 1984 is when I started this. So
you've been all over the world with Ginger.
All over the world.
So traveling light is not an option.
No. See,
Craziest locale night there. You can just say locale. You don't even have to explain what happened.
Probably Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta is
something about Mexico, huh? Pacific
free
Coast.
Game. Yeah. Yeah. Palm Springs, Puerto Vallarta, had great times great times everywhere.
Where's your favorite place you've ever been?
Cayman Islands.
Cayman Islands.
Caymans are my jam.
That's where your bank account is for all the tips?
Oh,
The $2,000
don't
plus
mention
tips.
money right now.
Yeah, we
I
learned.
just had a really bad experience with money and cash. And
We
stuff.
just learned before Scott went on air that he got robbed a few days ago at his house by the possible cleaning lady.
Yeah.
No,
the probable cleaning lady. 'Cause
Probable
I don't have
cleaning
other people come into the upstairs part of my house
right.
unless they're staying over. And that hasn't happened in a while. So we'll get into that later.
We're going to backtrack a little bit, but back in the Vegas days, you attended UNLV prior to UNT here in town, but you were a frequenter of the Star Club.
The Stark Club.
Club, excuse me.
Stark Club was earlier. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't. Vegas was earlier. What had happened was in the 70s, Cher was very popular, and I'm this little gay guy, and I'm just like, I watched Sonny and Cher, and my mom had long dark hair, and I was really confused when I was little, and I thought, well, my mom is in the living room in the kitchen, but I'm in the back of the house in the office watching Sonny and Cher, so I'd run down the hallway and have to look to see how my mom was on TV and in the kitchen at the same time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was really confused. So at one point when segregation and busing was happening and we were being taken out of our schools and shipped to other schools, my mother and father decided I'll go live with my dad over by North Park Mall. And so I moved in with my dad, and
Former military, correct?
he was former military, but he ran another jewelry company, Napier Jewelry Company at the time. And his friends were like my godfather was Jim Ali from Jim Ali Oldsmobile, and Bruce Lane, who invented the Slurpee.
Mm.
These were my dad's best friends.
Mhm.
So there was always money. And my dad had a white Silver Cloud Rolls Royce, but he had flown up to Lake Texoma where we have a boat. Every weekend we would go up there. Well, this weekend I decided to stay home, and Cher was opening in Las Vegas after the divorce, after Sonny and Cher had gone off the air. And that Rolls Royce was in the carport. And I thought, well,
I got to go to Vegas.
Dallas left field is only, 6 miles away. And so I got some cash, and I just took the Rolls Royce to Love Field and bought a Southwest Airline flight
At the counter.
because you could do that back then, and didn't have to show ID. You didn't have to do all that. You just bought a ticket. You got on a plane. You went anywhere. Got in a taxi, went to Caesar's Palace, mapped out, where Circus Maximus was back then. This wasn't the Caesars that we have today. It was just a big W-shaped, big thing, big hotel with the fountain that Evel Knievel had just jumped over, years before. And so it was a smaller place. And then I saw the tickets were like $17.50 and to $37.50, 2 drinks included. And I was like, well, I can't afford that. I don't have enough money. So I
You had
went.
that law firm in town. You would have given me that tip.
So I went poking around Caesar's Palace, and I found the kitchen entrance. And then I just walked through the kitchen, and all of a sudden there was these red velvet curtains, and I looked inside, and it was the Circus Maximus Theater. And I thought, oh, well, I could just sneak in the kitchen and just go pick out my seat. First one in the center stage. The tables came off of the stage, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I'll be, right in front of the stage, and she'll be right there. And then I got caught. They were starting to let people in to the Circus Maximus Theater. And of course, there's security up front, and all the hostesses or the waitresses, dressed like I Dream a Genie, were like, well, dude, this is my table. I didn't know about tables and sections and this, that, and the other back then. I was 13, 12. I don't know what I was. And they were like, well, you can't sit here. Where are your parents? And I was like, oh, well, I'm here, by myself. And they were like, so they went back up the stairs and past all the big red booths that were there, the tufted booths, and security was coming down. And there were these two black ladies that were sitting on the side of the stage, the wings of the stage. And they're like, hey, boy, come here. And it turned out to be the aunts of one of the dancers, Demita Joe. And we became friends that night and for 20 years after that. And they pulled me up on stage, and there was an extra chair on the wings of the stage behind the long red velvet curtains. And so I sat on stage. The people never saw me again that were down on the floor waiting tables because I was covered by these curtains. And so I watched the show from side stage. And
a waiter was born.
A waiter was born, but a little gay guy got to go back into Cher's dressing room, and with the dancer and the aunts. And Cher came out of her bathroom in a little pink terry cloth shower, Velcroed thing, pulling a wig on, but just beaming, and the makeup that she wore was just shiny, and everything was just shiny, and everything was slow motion. And Chastity was in the corner. Well, now it's Chas, but Chastity was in the corner playing a little white baby grand piano. And so I kind of walked over and sat next to Chastity, and I'm like, hey, Chastity. And she's like, hi. And we started playing, just playing the piano a little bit. And Sherry's like, who is this guy, this kid? And her manager comes over and starts talking to me. And she just wanted to make sure, because I told him my story, that I'd taken my dad's car and I bought a plane ticket and I came just to see Cher. And he's like, oh, dude, this is not good. But like I said, back in the day, you could do things like that. But Cher wanted to make sure that I was okay. She got my home address. She made sure that her manager, Billy Samuth, who just passed recently, followed up and made sure that I got home. And about 10 days later, I got this huge package in the mail, and it was, 200 8x10s of Cher and a tour jacket and a backpack from back in the day. So every Thanksgiving, me and my dad would go back to Vegas because Cher always played around Thanksgiving, and we went and saw Red Fox and Anne Murray back in the day, and Anne Margaret was there, and this was just the heyday of Vegas. And Cher was there, and we could always go backstage. And my dad back in the day was not the most PC guy, but he's like, I don't want to go see the Indian singing and blah blah blah. And finally, when he walked back into her dressing room, he was just like, he was tongue tied and stunned. And he was like, I cannot believe that you brought me here. And here we are in her dressing room. And I was like, oh, just relax, Dad. It's just Cher. And so it's very funny. So we kept in touch, and through my time in LA years later, she would donate things to Elton John had a charity, and the AIDS Foundation that I was heavily a part of would do raffles and silent auctions and things like that. So I would just call Billy Samuth's office and say, hey, I need, this or that or whatever from Cher. And she would sign something and send it over, and it could be auctioned off for a couple of grand. And so it was my give back and my contribution back to AIDS was crazy then, by the time I got to LA. But I made a lifelong friend pretty much.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
That's-
for sure.
Thank you for sharing him.
Yeah.
We don't need to be here, Brendan. We just give him a mic and let him start talking.
I know.
Fantastic.
You need your own podcast.
I told you I got tales to tell.
We got 2 more questions. We'll let you go, Scott. That you mentioned the Start Club and there's a raid you talk about. Can you describe that real quickly?
I forget what year it was. My God, we were all doing so much shit.
Like dancing, just dancing.
dancing. Yeah, that's it. But I was there the famous night of the raid. I remember going. It was a very windy night, and I remember the long white curtains just blowing in the breeze. And I went in. We were having a good time. We went downstairs to what was called the dungeon, and we were doing bad things in the bathroom to each other and to ourselves. And
This is going to be our best show ever, Brendan.
There were TVs in the bathroom stalls. I remember that. And there would be 6 or 7 of us in a stall doing, what we were doing. And then the raid happened. All the music stopped. The lights came up. We ran out into the dungeon, and the police were like, everybody up against the wall. Don't look at us. And they kind of gave everybody a free pass. By this time, they had moved everybody upstairs to the dance floor was the dungeon part. And then there was back rooms as well. But we were downstairs, and they made everybody go up the stairs and face the wall. And they said, no questions asked, no matter what you have in your pockets that shouldn't be in your pockets, ecstasy, cocaine, whatever. It was back in the heyday of Coke, and everybody had little amber bottles. I mean, we didn't do baggies. That was for the trashy people. So they were like just
the class system of drugs.
Exactly. There actually was back then. But they said, no questions asked, whatever you have in your pocket. If your ecstasy was in a baggie or whatever, throw it over your shoulder. If you have a Coke or whatever, Crystal was big back then. And they said, just throw it over your shoulder. All you could hear was this tink, 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 tink. Thousands.
No one
of
in there
bottles.
didn't reach for their pocket.
No, well, oh, hell no. Nobody. You couldn't go in that place sober.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you heard for about 3 minutes. It was ear shattering. All the amber bottles, it was crazy. It was actually crazy. And then we all got shown out the front door, and I think Start Club was closed and then reopened not long after that. But I kind of never went back there. It was not the same.
Yeah.
And kids don't do drugs.
All right. So besides what you just described, which may have been the answer to this question, what was the best day of your life? I mean, even this year,
Oh God, I've had so many experiences, guys. I mean, honestly, I don't have a favorite day. I honestly don't. Probably when I was a little kid and walked into Cher's dressing room and was not just arrested.
Yeah. I mean, something was on your side that day, know?
Yeah. Her name was Cher. And I was really lucky. And then I was friends with her for years and years and years. And I mean, I don't have the sway that I have now. And, but I'm kind of emulate her when I do go on the cruises, or we take over a resort or a hotel or whatever in some faraway land. I can do my part.
Yeah.
And I was at RuPaul's Drag Con, not last year because it was COVID, but the year before that, and everybody knew who Ginger was. And, so it was fun. I mean, all the stars of RuPaul's Drag Race knew me too. And I was like, well, I'm around. I'll still be around, just like Cher.
Well, Scott Berkman, thank you for joining us.
JW,
Where can people find you? Ellerbees,
Ellerbees Fine Foods. Usually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And then I go have cocktails around the city. So
if you don't know Scott Berkman, make a point to go meet him. He's fascinating, as you probably just heard, but he's worth knowing. He's a good dude, and everybody loves you in this town. So thank you for the time.
Thanks Scott.
JW.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.